Ready, we're live now.
Welcome, everyone. This is once again your host, Shailesh, and Beck, who is coming from Australia. We are going to bring you this Real Connections series, and we are going to talk about a real connection with a person who has got a full knowledgeable and how her journey has panned out. So we are connecting this with her, and she's from US. So it's going to be three time zones that we are today. One Australia time zone, New Zealand time zone, and here it is US time zone. So it's a unique kind of divine connection and a time zones that we are in. And so that's what I call it, these real connections. And we started this a few months ago. And now we are going to do this through this channel. What we are going to do is not just real connecting with real people and real sharing their real experiences, but actually making it more positives that we can take from here. And what more than to ask a person who has done so much things in a life, in a journey. We are going to uncover all that, and I'm not going to do all of that. That's all going to be done by my beautiful host, Beck, who is going to be uncovering and tapping into a lot of things with the real connecting with this unique person that we have today as a speaker and a guest speaker. So without further delaying, we'll just get into this, and I'll hand over to Beck, who is going to take us straight away from here to this beautiful journey of three time zones journey. So we are traveling now. Over to you, Beck.
Thank you, Shailesh. Thank you. I'm so excited to introduce Shayla to you all today. So Shayla, she serves as a spiritual guide, a personal development coach, a quantum energy healer, yoga instructor, and a new earth visionary. She's on a mission to spread light, to be in service as a collective unites. Shayla cultivated deep trust, unwavering faith, and held grip to her childlike sense of curiosity toward meaning of life and meaning. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into where Shayla's journey. She's going to lead us on that today. But I do want to touch on her mission. So this really lit me up when we were having a chat. And her mission is to merge the gap between the heavens and earth through embodiment of the divinity within all, each heart, each soul of every sentiment being on the wondrous planet. Let us usher in the new dawning of the new era. That just lit my heart. So I'm going to hand over to Shayla to let her guide us through her experience and her journey so far.
Awesome. Thank you, Beck. Thank you, Shailesh. It's such an honor to be here. Yeah, so I feel like through everything that I've experienced thus far, like what I've come to realize is that, you know, me personally, I am here to merge that gap between the heavens and the earth. And what that means ultimately is allowing my body be this vessel for higher dimensional energy to come through. And through that, we can create a different world. And I think that's what us visionaries and creative thinkers and artists, you know, that's what we're here to do, tapping into that, you know, eternal creative source. So yeah, I've always been very spontaneous and adventure loving and just desiring to know more. I've always loved to learn. That's been a huge foundation in my life. I remember my first journal that I ever started. I was 9 years old and I wrote in there the exact date because I was like, this feels like the start of like an epic journey. I just knew that my writing was going to take me places, and it's something that's, you know, huge in my personal practice now. And I'll get deeper into writing later, but yeah, so I lived a very conventional life. I grew up in middle America and there was really no culture. I didn't know racism was a thing until I was 18 and I was in college. Like I lived a very, very sheltered life. I was raised Christian and, you know, just kind of like that was all that I knew. I've always been an extremely intuitive being. And I've been talking with my parents about this more and more. They're telling me stories about, things I would say when I was a child, but I could feel, I always had the gift of being able to feel whether something was aligned with me or it wasn't aligned with me. So ultimately the gift of discernment. So I was aware of more that was going on than I could perceive or than I could comprehend at the time. And I've come into, what these gifts are later on in my life. Yeah, so it was like I could feel this whole other world around me, but I wasn't seeing it. And so that really started my quest, was like, what am I feeling? And also what else is out there? When I was 15 years old, this was really like the start of my spiritual journey, was my health journey. I had severe stomach issues and doctors had no clue what was wrong with me. And so I took it upon myself to try to heal myself naturally with food. And this led to me actually going completely plant-based. I ended up healing myself. But in that journey of seeking answers, somebody had recommended that I start practicing yoga. They told me that like the breathing techniques and the mindfulness practice could potentially help what was going on with my stomach. And at that time I was like, oh, yoga, like it's, I didn't know. It was like this realm of unknown that I had been told was not okay. But I decided that it was something that I wanted to try. And primarily like the physical aspect is what drew me in, because I was very fit and like health oriented. So I was like, okay, I'll get a good workout in, we'll try this. This was at 17 years old. And what I didn't know at that age was that I would stick with this practice and I would still be doing it 7 years later. And yoga really was what took me through the most difficult moments of my life. So like I said, I've always like been an outside of the box thinker. And when it came to deciding where I wanted to go to school, I was like, I want to study yoga. I want to know more about this. There's something here. I'm feeling this call to pursue. So I moved to Boulder, Colorado, and started studying yoga at Naropa University. I realized very quickly that I had this entire shadow self and all of this trauma and things that I was not aware of when I started practicing deeper and tapping more so into meditation and mindfulness practices. And so, yeah, I actually left school a semester and a half into my professional schooling. There was just like this call within me that I was supposed to do something else. Like the next part of my journey was actually going out and experiencing life. And yeah, so then that was like chapter 2 of me dropping out of school, and I moved off grid to Taos, New Mexico, actually, and lived with no water, no electricity. And it was really great because I could really tune in now to myself and into my practice. And I noticed for the first time, like all of the activity going on energetically in cities, in towns with electronics. So it was like a break from modern world essentially. But in that process, yeah, for sure. So the deeper my yoga practice went, the deeper my awareness of myself became, as well as the world around me, both good and bad. So it wasn't easy in the least bit. And there were definitely times where like I tried to pull away, or like I would be like, okay, I'm done with this. Like, I don't want to look at something here. I'm not going to get on my mat for, a week or two because this is too intense. And I think that's a part of the process sometimes, is just acknowledging where we're at and saying that, something happened, I need to process this. But I always came back to the mat. And every time I came back to the mat, I remembered why I first stepped foot on my yoga mat. And it turned into my place of safety ultimately. And like the one place on the planet where I was in control and I could just be, and there was no expectation. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to be anyone but myself. And, as anything progresses in life, as we advance, we begin to shift the way that we identify with ourselves. When we start to see ourselves making, advancements, the subconscious takes that as, wow, like, okay, this individual did this. Now what else can we do? Like we're breaking barriers essentially. So a lot of my journey as well was breaking the cycles of my ancestral lineage. And my grandma actually warned me before I went to college that I needed to be careful with the yoga thing because the Bible says ... So there's just all this stigma around this practice. And it was really a moment where I had to make a decision to listen to my inner calling, to my inner voice, opposed to what the people around me were telling me to do. And yeah, so we were talking before we came on the call, yoga is my foundation for my life. It's something I do every morning, something I can, like I said, come back to just recenter. And from a scientific standpoint, like what we're actually doing is clearing our energy channels. We're literally preparing for a fresh new start. And there's really no limits, as I'm finding, to what we have the capability to do with our human bodies. So I think it's really exciting to see, where this evolution process is going to go for humanity as a whole. Through the opening of my channel, so to say, the clearing of my senses, I really started to tap into my intuition and my psychic gifts. And this, again, was something that I had been told it was bad, like it's not real. It's not something that you can talk about. And so as I'm going through this whole process, my family, I have a great relationship with them now, but they didn't fully understand what I was going through. And so it wasn't like I could just call my parents and be like, hey, I'm having this third eye activation. So it's really like me having to navigate these crazy shifts in awareness, as well as in my energy body. And I don't know, it's like every time things got chaotic, some higher force would come through and just kind of like, boom, bring me back in. Like the quote I have in front of me.
I was just going to ask how lonely that would have been, not having your family there to, jump on the phone and sort of like discuss a few things, but then you brought it back with your higher self. Yeah,
and actually in that process of me recognizing that, like, the reason why they couldn't show up for me was I was in new territory. Like they didn't know how to navigate what I was going through. But as I tapped into my higher self, and just did my part in the healing journey, I noticed all of my relations with my family members shift and change. And our conversations started getting deeper. We started having more like emotionally vulnerable conversations and just opening up on a deeper level about spirituality, so now I have that space to actually talk to my family about what I do, and life is very, very different. I found though, like the constructs of this all being woo-woo or like not real were active and alive in my mind. And I was seeing this reflected back to me in my family members, right? Because that was what was passed down to me. So as I acknowledged that, and as I really came to embody like what I need to be true, I think that is when the change started to happen in my family, as well as like, just the way that the world received me. Because at first I was scared, when I was in 2019 is when I officially launched my YouTube channel and started reading tarot to the collective, because that was just like, it was something I felt called to do. And it also really broke me out of my comfort zone, like sharing an occult practice with the world, something my family was like, no. It was just one of those moments where I really like, again, had to listen to my inner voice.
So I just want to jump in here, Shayla. Getting into an unknown territory for audiences who are listening. So first thing, you took that at a young age, bold decision of getting into yoga, which was an unknown territory for you. And then there were lots of understanding of around you that don't do this or don't do that, or it's not good or bad, whatever. First is getting into that unknown territory, taking that bold decision and breaking all the norms of traditions or your surroundings and getting into it, and then changing your mindset and how you accepting the mindset that did yoga or did after accepting change your mindset or change your perspective towards life. Share some experiences on that. How do you manage to do that? Or like, you said initially few weeks or a couple of weeks you said this is not for me or this is not really working, but then you still pursued it and you went for it. You were persistent about it. But what really triggered that to persist? That no, okay, I want to try this or not something else. I will continue with this. What was the real triggering point to
That's a great question.
continue? Yeah, to continue this yoga journey.
I think that, well, first of all, one of the biggest reasons why I consistently came back to the practice was because of the benefits I was receiving. Like it was immediate. It's an immediate shift in vibrational frequency if we get down to it, which shifts the entirety of our reality. So the moments where I found myself not wanting to get on the mat were moments where there was something within me that I was having a difficult time looking at. Because when I step foot on the yoga mat, the mind stops and we let go of our everyday life and our identity, who we are, and give ourselves time to be the embodiment of a soul, to simply be. So it was always a moment where I knew that there was inner work that I needed to do, or that there was something that I was running away from that I didn't want to look at, whether that be needing to address, a painful experience that I had swallowed down, or a belief that I had taken on from society or from my family early on. And that was, this started happening and I didn't know what it was when I was in college initially. I was just completely blindsided. Like I had no clue what shadow work was. I had no clue that when something traumatic happens to you, that stays with you. Like I just was like, okay, this event happened, I'm going to pretend like it never happened, even though it happened. But what the subconscious does is takes all of our experiences and then translates that into the fabric of our reality. So as we're streaming consciousness through our body, the subconscious is like the filter. So it becomes a part of everything that we're experiencing. So another big, actually, I'd like to touch on how tarot came into my life, because that was, once again, very controversial for me to tap into. When I was going through difficulties in Colorado, when I was going to school, one of my roommates recommended that I get a tarot reading. She said, maybe that'll help you like find some clarity. And my first thought was, excuse me, like I was just so taken aback. Like I didn't want anything to do with it. I was a little afraid, I'm going to be completely honest, and had no clue what to expect. But I recognized the fear and I was like, okay, that fear is there. I think that you might need to address this and it's something to overcome and there may be something here for you. So I proceeded to get my very first tarot reading, and I told the tarot reader that I was, going through some emotional difficulties and things going on with my family members, and I just didn't feel like I had the capacity to be in school. I felt like I was being called in a different direction. And he looked like a wizard. He had long white hair and a long white beard.
Yeah.
It was just like really mystical. And he shuffles the cards, and the first card he pulls is the Magician. It's number 1 in the Major Arcana. And he got really excited. He was like, the Magician, you can do anything. You can do anything. And I was like, I can do anything. And the next card he pulled was the World card. And once again, he's like, cycles are complete. You can do anything. You could go anywhere. And I looked at him and I was like, okay, I know what I'm going to do. Thank you. You just gave me my answer. I'm going to leave school. And I didn't understand tarot. I didn't understand the process, but he gave me my answer. It was just like, all right, there is more. It was another one of those moments where I tapped into a higher power and recognized that I didn't have to stay within the confines of what I was seeing in my physical reality. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah.
basically, because there are a lot of stigmas around, and when you try to get around into new territory, or when you try to tap into new things, whether it's yoga, whether it's tarot, but it's your self intuition or it's your self belief that you are confident of to get into it either way. But then these are the elements of around us which you said just now, that okay, you can do anything and you can do it. But then doing anything means like leaving school. Some 90% people will say, are you mad? Then why are you leaving school? Or you know, but that's the power, that you recognize yourself, and that's where it's not the be all and end all of what you do and what you take decisions, which is against the odds or against the norms or against the traditions. But that's what it is. You got to
Mhm.
keep exploring and doing, and that's, I think you touched on a very good level of spiritual guide that you had, and the intuition that you had really guided you through that. So I really, listeners would definitely understand that, you know, you can do anything. That will be my key word today. Right?
Yeah,
Big.
definitely. Yeah, definitely. Cycles are complete. You can do anything.
Yeah.
So I'd just like to go into so when was it that you felt your calling to then share and I guess explore and then share with others and then go on to coaching and down the path you have now?
Yeah. So this all started in 2019. Prior to me launching my YouTube channel, that was like that was the first kind of exposure, I guess, to me interacting with the world at large. I was living in the forest at the time. I took like 2 years when I was 2021 to just really figure out who I was and like really go in and do all of the shadow work, and it's continuous and it's going to go on forever. But I just was like, you know what, this is the time in my life where I really want to focus on finding myself so I can then show up and figure out how I can best contribute. So I was like in that mode 2017, 2018, 2019. And one day I woke up, I was, like I said, living in the forest, sleeping in a tent. And what I would do in the day is literally just like study the cards and study the stars and practice and write, play music. It was like God came through on the phone and said, ring, ring, it's time for you to share what you've discovered with the world. And I was like, okay. It was completely undeniable. I was like, I'm going to pack up today and I'm going to drive back to my family in Nebraska, stay with my parents for a couple of months, launch, and then continue on the journey. So October of 2019 was when I started reading tarot on YouTube. And when I made that move to just like share myself initially, the whole world came in, just like gave me a big hug. And it's like the Fool in tarot, like when we're about to start something new, we can't quite see what we're diving into, but if we jump, then we realize that we're caught and that we've always been caught. And so it was a moment like that. And so people just started kind of reaching out to me and asking to work with me. And I was like, what? You really, are you sure? Okay, I think so. I think I could do this. And so that's really how it all started, was people asking to work with me. And then as I really got familiar with reading tarot, I realized the importance of understanding how to navigate through the energies of life as well as the energies of our own self. And that was what made me take the next step into actually becoming a coach, to, embody that role as a guide as people learn to navigate through the energies of life. So it's been a 3-year journey working with clients. And last year I officially created my business entity, Gamma Evolution LLC. And yeah, super, super grateful to be where I am.
No, that's amazing. Like becoming an entrepreneur at a young age and then getting on with your own intuitions is absolutely what the way everyone needs to understand that they can do it, basically. But then you also pursued, I guess, even as your education level, and you kept on educating yourself on various aspects and various fields. So
Yes.
what really is your coming up positives with those aspects that you are gaining? Experiences is one part, education is another part, but what is your now vision as a positives that you are seeing at this moment and the way forward? What are the positives that you are looking at it to do all of this?
The positives doing all
Yeah,
this,
yeah,
the vision plan
yeah, yeah,
forward. Yeah.
yeah,
Great question. There's a lot of
yes,
lots of beautiful projects in store.
yes.
Yeah, on an education level, I did just receive my bachelor's degree in metaphysical science, and
Mm,
I will be pursuing my doctorate in philosophy,
mm,
which is huge, because I
Huge,
actually,
yeah.
I'm able to pay for myself going back to school through my business,
mm,
which a reason I left school was because I didn't have the finances and I didn't want to be
yeah,
$200,000 in debt.
yeah,
So huge full circle there.
mm.
In regards to
Definitely.
yeah, in regards to Gamma, in 2 weeks, actually, I have my website launch.
Uh-huh.
I will be opening the doors to my membership program, which is where I will be uploading tarot readings, astrology forecasts, yoga classes, meditations, guided meditations, basically sharing all of the different tools that I've acquired with my collective. And then I'm also in the process of creating a course specifically designed around how to alchemize our traumas into our most treasured and valuable experiences.
Wow.
So
Wow.
essentially, it's like how to alchemize, how to
Yeah,
transform.
Yeah,
that's
amazing.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then on top of that, the third announcement is I'm actually going to be in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic in 2 months, and I am planning my very first retreat. So we'll be bringing
Oh,
people in from all over the world and spending 4 days together on the beautiful island, really diving into ourselves and cultivating authentic soul connections with other people on this journey.
that's
So
So
that is
amazing.
what the
yeah.
trajectory looks like moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I could see you just glowing when you went to that third announcement. That's where your excitement's at for sure.
Yeah. Very
Yeah,
excited. Very excited.
definitely. Oh, so much happening. It's so amazing to be able to share this and, like to just open up. It's a whole, like for many of our listeners, like it is a whole new world that, you're sharing with us now that, some might understand on a deeper level, but some, are still just starting out on their own journeys as well. And trying yoga and trying tarot. So it's really, I'm really excited to be able to show that there's such an expansion in different modalities and how far that you can go and transform yourself with this work.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's like endless layers, honestly, as I continue. It's like the onion that just never ends.
Never
Yeah,
ends.
amazing. It's a beautiful onion though that never ends.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So what's your all this time, your connections with yourself and then with others and the journey that you're living so far? What is the future that this on the purpose of your connections is to share? So you are receiving, you are accepting, but then now you are sharing, which is the most amazing thing that any person can do, is not just store within you, but also give it back to the whole world and the universe around you. In terms of that, the connections that you are creating and creating, as you said, that creations never end. You just keep doing like onions, you just peel, and it just keeps going. So what would be your message for the audiences who are listening really about how you can develop or confident about to create your own connections and create your own kind of journey? Because to me, what I can see is you have literally created a journey that you would like, and you have included a lot of layers in it yourself, and not following anyone, but following your own. So living in the woods or living in the bushes or what you described is amazing experiences. So tell us now how you're going to reconnect those for the audiences. How do they approach this, create these connections, that you have created?
Well, first of all, nobody has to quit their jobs and live in the forest unless they feel called.
Yeah, that's true.
Everybody's
that's out of question, huh?
You can, but you don't have to do it that way. Honestly, we all have an inner calling. We all have our own purpose for being here on the planet, and it is our inherent birthright as human beings to express and to create. And life just feels better when we're allowing ourselves to be who we are and to create and express. So it's going to look different for all of us, like what we want our lives to look like, but it's a constant journey, and the journey can start anytime. And it really comes down to making that choice in each and every moment to just listen to yourself and listen to your inner voice. And the trust, at first, you feel like you're faking it, right? Because it's like working a muscle that's not strong. It feels foreign, but over time, we start to gain strength, right? When we continue to do an exercise, or when we continue to practice tapping into the essence of faith, and we start to feel it, and we start to see in our physical lives that faith reflected back to us. It all happens within, and we always have our answers. So we are our own best guru. We are our own best healer. We are our own best therapist. And like I said, it's a journey of being able to trust ourselves and trust in a higher power. And on the note of confidence, until we can find confidence within ourselves, what I did was I placed confidence in a higher power. I found a higher reason for me being here. And when we give our confidence to our higher power, to our creator, that takes the stress off of us. And that comes through surrender, when we allow ourselves to be open to the greatness of the divine. So it's a process, continuous process. And life is to be lived and enjoyed however we best feel that to happen.
So here is another question for you, that how did you manage to isolate yourself from your family, from others, and go into this woods and experience that kind of bold decision at a very young age? What you were 20, 21, what you were, right?
20, yeah, at that time.
Yeah.
Well, when I was 18 and I moved off grid, that was like that shattered my reality. And I really had to develop a harder exterior. Like where I lived, there was no law enforcement. It was like truly like the wild, wild west, like one of the last places in America that like freedom reigns. So my time there just kind of like toughened me up. And while I was, the first 2 years I was in New Mexico, I was also in a very abusive relationship. This is a whole other sector of my life. But I was constantly subjected to experiences where I was like riding that wave of like my life potentially ending. And so I had to become okay with death at a young age. And I had to deal with the trauma of all of these experiences later. But basically surfing that wave of death and not dying showed me a higher power once again, a higher force once again, and really took away a lot of the fear I had. It was like I had just been in situations that I shouldn't have made it out of, but I did. And so I knew always, it was just that inner knowing that I was protected. So when I decided to leave the relationship and then start the healing journey, I was like, you know what, I'm going to go to the woods and I'm just going to put up my energetic force field and do my spiritual work and know that I'm going to be just fine. And I never had any issues. just fine.
Yeah, because I think 90% people, we are very much fearful rather than
Yeah.
fearless. And
Yes.
particularly when you are going into a land where there is no law, no reforms, whatever it is, and you are just enjoying like a jungle king or queen, So it's amazing. I think we should experience this back where there is no law, there is no system and no laws. It
No.
would be awesome, isn't it? To have a explore. And with you, I think I came to know, at least today, that we came to know that there are so many places like that would be where you can still open your mind and explore yourself
Mm,
rather than
definitely.
living in the same system and same old kind of traditionally doing, so you don't know the other side of the coin at all.
Mhm.
So that's a
Yeah.
great insight that you gave us today, which probably we are not curious now we are excited to actually go and explore. I would rather go and
Yeah,
explore such
definitely.
places, isn't it, Vic?
Yeah.
I would definitely.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. No, definitely.
Yes. Yeah, amazing, Shayla. It's great to connect with you on that level of real experiences, that your insights. Tell us something more about your insights in terms of, for the audiences who are listening. Like, one thing which I understood from this whole connection with you is there is no such thing as age where you can do anything and you can't do anything. That's one thing I understood. There is no place where you can't go. I understood that, because you can go to a place where there are no laws. So that's all good. So the other aspect of it, I can see that you are a person of accepting just the way who you are, and listening to yourself is the key for your all these things that you have amazingly done and doing, and also educating yourself. So there's never an age for education, so you keep educating yourself and increasing your level of. So what would be, see, not everybody is like you, because we all are unique. However, we all want to do what others have done or what others want to do. But what I learn and understand from here today is, like, you should be who you are, and you should listen to who you are and what you want to do. So what would be your message to the audiences who are listening, looking at your amazing journey, and they might want, just like I was now excited to do that experience. What would be the message for your audiences, that how do you really create, and how do you easily become fearless rather than fearful? Because you have tapped into areas where there is more fear not
Mhm.
to go there,
Mm.
and people get setback of not trying or exploring. So what's the confidence level or the motivation level? Who is your motivator? How does you get that confidence and motivate yourself? Tell us that.
That's a great question.
Mm.
I love testing boundaries. I love to
Oh,
prove
that's
myself
good.
wrong. I
Mm.
love to find fear within myself. I've always been like this since I was a child, and then overcome that fear.
Yeah.
I grew up in sports, so like competitive nature then turned into me wanting to conquer my fears as
Mm.
they arose. Okay, so yeah, my advice would be, the key really in manifesting is being able to lift our vibrational frequency above the frequency of our present reality and into the frequency of what it is we want. And I think that this process, like, that's how we overcome fear. Essentially, when we look at it on a vibrational scale, we're
Yeah.
moving from the frequency of fear into the frequency of, let's say, love.
Right.
So it's all, for me, it was, I don't know, it was just like freeing, almost liberating, to understand how frequencies work and how the universe works, to bring in the rational understanding, right? Because the mind wants to understand how things work. So I think that the first step is just beginning to shift the way that we view reality and not seeing it as so solid and concrete, because everything really is just energy, just vibrating at different speeds. So a manifestation trick or hack, so to say, is to spend at least 5 minutes a day visualizing what it is you want. Then, here's the key: feeling the emotion of what it feels like to have and to experience what you desire. So you're giving yourself 5 minutes every day to just sit and to be in the energy of that manifestation. And this is a meditation technique. It's, yeah, anybody can do it. Anybody can do it. And I think that this power to create, like, once again, we all have it, but it's something that we've just been disconnected from. Like, we deserve to decide what we want to do with our life, and then to do it. So the difficulty can be when we don't see in our physical lives the reality that we want. That creates disconnect, because we're like, but I want this thing, but I'm not seeing it around me. So then it becomes a process of putting the blinders on to what we're actually seeing, not to the point where we're disassociating, but just saying, like, finding a level of acceptance, like, my reality is how it is. Then from that place, we can say, okay, this is where I want to go. And I'm going to invest my energy into where I want to go, rather than investing my energy in what's wrong or where I've been that doesn't feel right or doesn't feel good. So once again, like, our power is endless, it's infinite. And I think that's the beauty of life, is we're all just experimenting with what we have the capability to do and to create. And at the end of the day, the only limitation is our mind.
Love that.
Absolutely. Well said.
Love that.
Love
Great.
that. Yeah. Because thoughts keep coming. Mind is throwing all sorts of thoughts, but you
Definitely.
said, like, taking the deep breath is more important to understand your who you are, what you want, and how you want. But keeping exploring and becoming bold is one of the key aspects that I can learn from here. Rather than delaying that steps, take the step, and
Yes,
then
definitely.
then keep the directions going. Does that resonate with you?
Yes, absolutely. And that's a big part of it as well. Like, right, we hold the vision, but then for our physical reality to match the reality that we're creating, we have to take the action steps. And that's where the intuition comes in, and it'll bring in synchronicities, things that you're like, that's really interesting. Maybe go in that direction, right? That's our higher guidance coming through to lead us into this desired reality.
Yeah. And then to follow through and move into it.
Yes. Just take the steps consistently that you need to take in order to get to where you want to go.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes,
thank you so much,
good.
Shayla. I've my brain's very curious, so I'm definitely absorbing all of this. Thank you so much for sharing a little insight into your journey and how you've come to be where you are at today. We will add all of your links, your website, your YouTube, and everything to our podcast. So if anybody is curious to follow you and find out more as to where you're at, what you're doing, your retreat, what you've got on offer, they'll be able to find that via the links below the podcast.
I think it was amazing, Shayla. Well, thank you once again for this beautiful conversation that we had. And I think I loved it, enjoyed it. I know Beck also. So one can say that we definitely would like to have you once again and see your journey, how it pans out, the way you are going. It's an inspiration, it's a motivation for lots of people who are listening, that it's not the end of the world or be all or end all. At any point, any trigger point or any age point, you can still do lots of things and you can still continue doing things. And that's what who we are as a human. So this is a real kind of an eye-opener for many listeners, that that's not something that, even though you don't have education, you can still drop out of the school like Shayla and you can still achieve a lot of things. And that's the key. So yeah, once again, thank you so much, Shayla. This is a good insights that we got today from you. And I think we will look at your journey as well, and feel free to give us more and more inspirational and motivational areas and steps that you are taking. So basically, it's embracing yoga, which is completely unknown territory, and then tarot reading, which is finding yourself in your intuition, gives us a lot of people that they can find something else within them. They can also connect with something else that they have really not tapped into. They can go into any unknown territory and still make it work. So there are lots of positives that I take it from here, where you don't have to get stuck. You just have to keep moving. So keep moving like Shayla, I would say.
That's
To all
right,
the
definitely.
audiences.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Such a
thanks very much once again, Shayla. We will definitely keep in touch and would love to see you once again. But yeah, that's all from us now. So all the positives, listeners, you probably can take it from today's conversation that we had. And I will just leave it to my beautiful host once again, Beck, to end this session with a positive note.
Oh, thank you so much, guys. Thank you again, Shayla. Really appreciated our chat today. Again, listeners, if you do have any questions, please feel free to jump on, shoot us the questions on our Facebook Lives, and we will do our best to get them answered for you. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.
Thank you. Hello, Shayla.
Hello.
How was it?
It was
Oh,
good. It was good.
it's still recording. It's live.
It's funny.
Hang on, she hasn't ended it. We join again. I'll end it and you join again.
Perfect.